Hi, welcome to this tutorial. Here we have a question on the quadratic equation. The roots of the quadratic equation x squared minus x plus 2 equals 0 are alpha and beta. Now we are asked to prove that 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared plus 1 all over 1 plus beta squared is equal to negative half. And then in B, we are asked to prove that the product of 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared and 1 all over 1 plus beta squared is equals to a half. And then we are asked to form the new quadratic equation whose roots are 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared and 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. Now, let us start with A. We are asked to show that 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared plus 1 all over 1 plus beta squared is equal to negative half. Now, when we look at this, the LCM is just the product of the denominators. And so we have 1 plus alpha squared into 1 plus beta squared as the LCM. This product divided by 1 plus alpha squared, 1 plus alpha squared will cancel, and we have 1 plus beta squared. Multiplied to 1 is just 1 plus beta squared plus this LCM divided by that. 1 plus beta squared cancels 1 plus beta squared, and we're left with 1 plus alpha squared. Multiplied to 1 is just 1 plus alpha squared. Now, we see 1 plus 1, 2, plus alpha squared plus beta squared, all over 1 multiplied to 1 is 1. 1 multiplied to beta squared is beta squared. Alpha squared multiplied to 1 is alpha squared. Alpha squared multiplied to beta squared is alpha beta all squared. Now, we know that alpha squared plus beta squared from the identity, alpha squared plus beta squared from the identity, uh, alpha squared plus beta squared is the same as alpha plus beta all squared minus 2 alpha beta. Okay, so when we use this identity, we're going to replace alpha squared plus beta squared with this. Okay, so that gives us 2 plus alpha plus beta all squared minus 2 alpha beta all over, we have here, we also have alpha plus beta squared again. So we're going to use that same identity. So have 1 plus alpha plus beta all squared minus 2 alpha beta plus alpha beta all squared. Now, what do we see here? We have sum of the roots, because we were told the roots were alpha and beta. So alpha plus beta is actually the sum, and alpha beta is actually the product. But look at the equation that was given us. We're given the equation x squared minus x plus 2 equals 0. This therefore means that A is 1, B is negative 1, C is 2. Okay? And sum of product should therefore be negative B all over A. So that should give us 1. And product of roots is C all over A. And so that should give us C all over A. That should give us C all over A. Alpha beta is C all over A. That should give us 2. Okay. Now we use these 2 information and we fill it here. So that should give us 2 multiplied to 1 squared minus 2 multiplied to 2 all over 1 plus 1 squared minus 2 multiplied to 2 into 2 squared. And so we will have 2 plus 1 minus 4 all over 1 plus 1 minus, it's a plus here, please, plus 2 squared. So we have 1 plus 1 minus 4 plus 4. That gives us 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 minus 4 is negative 1. And down here, negative 4 plus 4 is 0, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so we have shown the first part. The first part is 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared plus 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. We have shown that this sum is actually negative half. Okay, now we want to proceed to show the second part, which is 1 all over 1 plus b squared into 1 all over 1 plus, 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared into 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. We want to show that this product is a half. Right, so let's take off this. Okay, let's take off this. Let's take off this. Now, B, we want to look at the product. We want to look at that product. We want to look at that product. We know this is a fractional expression, another fractional expression. So simplification can go by cancelling like this, vertical wise, or across like that. Since we have nothing that can cancel, we just simply multiply numerator to numerator, and the denominator multiplied to denominator. Okay, so that gives us 1 all over 1 multiplied to 1 is 1, 1 multiplied to beta squared is beta squared, alpha squared multiplied to 1 is alpha squared multiplied to beta squared is alpha beta all squared. Okay, so this gives us the same arrangement that we had earlier on. Okay, we will use the same arrangement, that same identity that was written in red. We're saying alpha squared plus beta squared is going to give us alpha plus beta all squared minus 2 alpha beta, then plus alpha beta all squared. Okay, so now again we use the information that we had earlier on. Sum of roots was 1 and product of roots was 2. So we'll put it there. We're going to have 1 all over 1 plus 1 squared minus 2 into 2 plus 2 squared. Okay, so that will give us 1 all over 1 plus 1. We have 2 minus 4 plus 4. Okay, that will give us 1 all over 2. All right, so this proves that the product is a half. Okay, this product is a half. Working with this quadratic equation, knowing that sum of root is 1 and product of root is 2, as we demonstrated earlier on. So we have succeeded to show the case of A and B. Now we are asked to form a new quadratic equation with these roots. So let us go ahead now and do the last part, which is to form the new quadratic equation that has this root. Remember, this is the original quadratic equation whose roots were alpha and beta. Now we want to form a new quadratic root having this information, but the new quadratic roots are this expression and that expression. Okay, so we know the new roots. The new roots are 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared and 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. Those are the new roots. Okay, so we look for sum of new roots. Sum of new root is 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared plus 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. And we look up there. We actually did it earlier on. So we just simply equate the result. So sum of new root is negative half. And then product of new roots is 1 all over 1 plus alpha squared multiplied to 1 all over 1 plus beta squared. And again, look at the b. B is actually that product that we did earlier on. So we just quote the result is a half. Now, what is the new equation? New quadratic equation. New quadratic equation has the nature x squared minus sum of new roots into x plus product of new root equals 0. That is the format for a quadratic equation. So we're going to have x squared minus sum of new roots multiplied to x. Sum of new roots is negative half. So we have negative half multiplied to x plus product of new root. Product of new root, we found it to be half, to be equal to 0. And so now, what do we have? We have x squared minus minus become plus. Plus 1 all over 2x plus a half is equal to 0. Okay? Here we are good to conclude, but to make it look nice, we can remove the denominators by multiplying all through by 2. We multiply all through by 2. We have 2x squared plus 2 into a half x plus 2 into a half 2 multiplied to 0. That gives us 2x squared. These 2 cancels with that 2. We have plus x. These 2 cancels with that 2 plus 1. And 2 multiplied to 0 is 0. So this is the new quadratic equation that can be formed from these roots. The new quadratic equation formed from this root, knowing this original quadratic equation whose roots are alpha and beta. This is the equation that can be formed.